the Bioproducts Innovation Cluster Advancement Network South Africa, so via PANZA, including the African Medicines Platform and IK registration system. I want to believe that this morning's delegation is led by Dr. Rebecca Maseramule. But in the meantime, maybe let me first take apologies from yourself, Shanaz.
Good morning, Chair, and all on the platform. So the apologies we received were from both the Minister and the Deputy Minister, who have other engagements this morning. And then from the member side, we've got one from Dr. Boshoff. He's attending some party planning meeting. And then Ms. Mananiso, who's attending the Committee on Section 194. And then Mr. Litsi, that's on study leave. So those are the apologies that we received, Chair. That's being noted.
Thank you very much, Shanaz. Right, at this point, then let me hand over immediately to Dr. Maseramule.
Chair, so DG on here. DG is here, Chair.
Oh.
I learned early this morning that he was coming. I wasn't aware when I sent the emails on Wednesday. So I think I'd like to maybe hand the floor up or the mic up to the DG.
All right, sorry about that. I also didn't check in the participants panel. Sorry, DG. Good morning, DG. Let me hand over to you first.
No, thanks very much, Chair. There's nothing much to add. As you said in your introduction, we are really, again, excited and pleased that you've given us an opportunity to share with you this work that we've been doing for quite some time. So it will be excellent updates on the 4 areas mentioned. The first is on the regulations. The second one is registration of IKS, and then the recognition of prior learning and commercialization. And then we'll bring you up to speed where we are. I suspect we may include the update on the establishment of the SSDU to manage this work going forward. Special Services Delivery Unit, I think it's what the acronym stand for. And this work sits between 2 programs. The first part is in program 4. This is on the first 3 parts. Regulations, registration, and recognition of prior learning. And then the commercialization is sitting in program 2. So I suspect the 2 DDGs whose heads are on the block, if they were to be chopped, is DDG Imran, responsible for program 4, and DDG Rebecca, acting DDG Rebecca Maseramule, responsible for commercialization of the work. So I don't know if they want to add anything, but otherwise I would suggest we then go straight to the presentation. But anything you want to add, Rebecca and Imran?
Also, DG, I think Imran's going to maybe start out the introduction to the presentation, and then we'll have the presentation from both program 4, program 5, then I'll bring up the rear. And then we also have 3 beneficiaries that have benefited from our funding towards their taking innovation to market, IKS-based innovations, that we also invited to give a testimony because they're benefiting from the work of the department.
Good morning, honorable members and Chair and DG and others. Nothing to add. I think both you and Rebecca have sketched out what we're going to cover. Just thought what we could do with permission, Chair, is to introduce the team that would be doing the presentation today. I think people are aware that Professor Yona Saletti, who played an instrumental role over the last 15 years, driving and getting us to the point where we are, has left the department to retirement on the 14th. So some of the members of his team have in the past engaged with the portfolio committee and will be doing the presentation. It's Ms. Shumi Pango will be doing the presentation, but I'll ask the team to introduce themselves and then they can go straight into the presentation. As we said, it's in 2 parts. The first part dealing with the regulations, the RPL, etc., and then Dr. Mazabula's team will then talk about the commercialization aspect. So can Shumi and Kedi, I see the two of you, if you want to introduce himself. I'm not too sure if Tom is on the call.
Thank you, DDG. Good morning, DG. Good morning, members. My name is Shumi Pango. I'm from the Department of Science and Innovation. I am responsible for policy and legislation development. Thank you.
And then we have Kedi.
Good morning, DDG. Good morning, DG and the members of the Portfolio Committee. My name is Giri Apani. I work for the Indigenous Knowledge Systems unit. Thank you.
And then I see that Tom has managed to join us. Tom, are you able to introduce yourself? Apologies, I think Tom is struggling. I can see.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm in now. DDG. I'm in.
Do you want to just introduce yourself quickly and show members who you are?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Tom Suknandan. Was responsible for both Chimi and myself were responsible for the development and the drafting of the IK Act and the regulations. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Tom. Just anyone, did I miss anyone from the Program 4 team that's here? Some of the names are, there's a number here that I don't know. So I think that's the full Program 4 team. Then maybe let me hand it over to Rebecca to introduce your team. And then Shumi, can you start with the presentation after that?
Good morning. I'm still waiting for Dr. Krupeka Shabalala to sign on. I just spoke to him. He was struggling to log in. So I'm not sure if we want to maybe wait, let him introduce himself right before he presents. But I don't see him on the system quite yet. I know he is trying to dial in now. So through you, Chair, if we can take the first part of the presentation, and then hopefully by that time, Dr. Shabalala should be in the meeting.
And then colleagues, could we also maybe have the colleagues from the 3 different platforms introduce themselves today? Well, to introduce themselves now, so that by the time we get to that point, they're not reintroducing themselves.
So we have 3 beneficiaries. We have Baba Sabisa Mabena, Mr. Mabena. Okay. Is Ms. Parker, is she on the line? Okay. Is Mr. Matabata, is he on the line? Okay. I don't see them. Chair, I'll go. Let me just go see if I can contact them. I know that Shanez sent the email link to them because we sent the email addresses through. But let me just check and see maybe what the challenge is and why they're not connected right now.
Okay, that's fine. And then who else is on the platform? We're a bit fewer today, so I think it gives us an opportunity just to understand who exactly is with us on the platform. Are there any colleagues on the CSIR? I see Sichaba Baritzeng.
Yes, good morning, colleagues. That's me.
Okay, can you introduce yourself, please? Please introduce yourself.
Oh, good morning, colleagues. My name is Sichaba Baratseng from the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and I am the Indigenous Knowledge Systems Program Manager. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Masiramula, are we missing anyone else out?
No, I'm just looking at the list. I see Mr. Tutseho Matabata, he's here. Maybe he didn't understand, maybe the way I pronounced his name was so bad, he didn't know to speak up. Mr. Tutseho, could you please introduce yourself? Mr. Matabata? Okay.
The mic is open, but there's no sound coming through.
Yeah. Chair and Rebecca, I also see two other CSR colleagues. If they want to introduce themselves, then it might be useful as well.
Okay,
I see nice Gugu and.
Okay, I'm just, Mr. Dr. Chabalala just joined. Dr. Chabalala, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, honorables. My name is Ank Chawalala. I have the Indigenous Knowledge-Based Technology Innovation section of the DSI. My apologies, I'm struggling with my machines where I am. Thank you.
And we see Google Kalala from CSR.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Gugu Kalala from the CSR. I have been working with Prof. Lady and Carol for the past 10 years on the National Recorder System. So I'm responsible for managing the development of the ICA registration system. Thank you.
So I think, Chair, at this time, everyone that is dialed in who can have access to a mic is here. And I think we can maybe possibly finish our okay.
All right. Shumi,
excuse me.
Like
Yes, please, Chair. In the platform, we have Dr. Utsile Madizi from the University of Northwest. He's one of the beneficiaries of the Bachelor of Indigenous Knowledge in Northwest.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I think we should then be done. Let me hand back to you, Dr. Masiro Mulek, DG, and team to then make the presentations.
Thanks, Chair. I think we will be starting as program 4. So Shumi, are you able to put up the presentation and then start the presentation?
Thanks, DDG. From my side, it says the sharing has been disabled. Maybe can I ask my colleague, Kitty, if you are able to share from your side?
No, you should be able to share. It's open. Don't you want to check again?
Are you able to see this, the presentation?
Yes, I can, but put it on, on slide mode. I can see it. I'm
All
sure
right,
others can.
Once more, good morning, honorable members. Good morning, colleagues. I'm just going to get right into it.
Sorry,
Shumi, can you put it on the slide mode feature? I think you had it hovering, but still showing up as your screen.
Yeah, she will have to take it to enable content to be able to press that.
So on the top, you'll see enable content. If you can press that and then the slide mode.
Okay, share screen. Is it okay now? Did you?
No, if you go on the top, you'll see the enable content. It says security warning, references to external pictures. If you can click that enable content on your left, just below there.
on the yellow bar.
Yeah, on the yellow bar. So you first have to allow it to and then put it in slide.
From my side, it is doing all of that. I'm not sure why it's not responding from your side. I'm on the slideshow from my side.
Okay.
How is it now?
Yeah, now it's perfect. Thanks. Thanks, Sean.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. The presentation outline, honorable members, is about the update on the IK Act regulations, the update on the registration system and IK-based bioinnovation program in African medicines platform. So my part of the presentation will focus on the update on the IK regulations, and my colleagues will deal with the two aspects of the presentation. So as you will be aware, in August 2019, the President signed the IK Act, which is for the protection, promotion, development, and management of Indigenous knowledge. And Section 31 of the said Act sets out the processes for the minister to develop regulations. And these regulations, they clearly stipulate how the third parties should access and use Indigenous knowledge. It also talks to the management and protection of intellectual rights of the knowledge. It clearly stipulates how the benefit sharing should be done and the compliance thereof. It also sets out clearly the processes on how to deal with the transboundary arrangements. And lastly, and most importantly, it deals with the National Competent Authority, which will be the National Indigenous Knowledge Systems Office. And as DG correctly referred to it, we call it this SSDU, which is a Special Service Delivery Unit. So as you can see, my part is the one that's highlighted in red, and that is where I will be concentrating on the presentation. So what we have done so far is we have developed the draft regulations, and the request was that we ultimately we will have to translate the regulations into all 9 official languages. But because the regulations are still at the draft stage, we only have the English version of the draft regulations. However, we have translated the presentations for consultation into all 11 languages. So prior to the awareness campaigns, or should I say to the consultations of the regulations, we have been embarking on the awareness campaigns around the Act itself, and we have managed to cover the whole country. All 9 provinces have been consulted on. Rather, the public awareness has happened in all 9 provinces. In the IK Act, we have identified 8 elements where the Act will focus. And one of the most important elements of focus is the biopiracy. So when we loosely define biopiracy, we refer to it as unauthorized use of Indigenous knowledge by third parties. And by third parties, we mean everyone who is not a member of that community, government involved. So it's governments and private sectors, research parties, the non-profit sectors, who then engage with communities for any projects that they want to do with the communities. In response to that, we have taken on the responsibility of assisting the communities in developing their own biocultural community protocols. And to some extent, this stems from the Nagoya Protocol, which we are also signatories to as South Africa. So the biocultural protocol is an instrument then that sets out clear terms and conditions for engagement. In other words, it gives the communities an extra layer of right to determine whether they want to engage with a third party, and if they want, the terms of engagements must be clearly set out so that the communities are protected. And this biocultural communities. We engage with communities, we assist them, and there is a number of questions that they must respond to, which would include who the communities are, where their history is, what resources do they have, including bio and cultural resources. So once we have that biocultural protocol, the third party then will know exactly where the communities are, what the leadership structures are, what the decision-making powers lie within the community, because part of the biopiracy has happened because the third parties don't really know who is at the decision-making position in the community, and therefore, if you like, the benefit sharing agreements would be concluded, but not with the relevant people. So the biocultural protocol then is there to identify the leadership structure and the decision-making authorities and the resources that are found in that community. So these BCPs, as we call them, they are developed through a participatory decision-making process. And it is the communities then who sets out the terms of engagement. But we always make sure that we are able to strike the balance, which is based on the customary laws of the community and the Constitution of the Republic, so that we don't encourage the communities then to abuse the powers that are given to them by the BCPs to the detriment of the citizens of the country. So in terms of the biocultural community protocols that I indicated, we have covered the whole country, but we are doing it in piecemeals. As you see in the slide, in Mpumalanga, we have done 3 communities, in Northwest 3, in Free State 4, in Eastern Cape, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go through the whole list, but this is just to indicate that we have covered the country and a number of communities have been assisted in that regard. And now I'm getting into the regulations themselves. So this is just going to be a genesis of the work that has happened since the signing of the Act. In March 2020, the draft regulations were presented before the Executive Committee of DSI. And in the same month, in the following year of 2021, the EXCO recommended that the Minister approves that the DSI embarks on the consultation of the draft regulations. So once we received that go-ahead, we started with consulting with our government, with our sister government departments, who then provided us with their comments and inputs on the draft regulations. And in 12 August 2021, the Minister approved that the regulations be presented before the S8 cluster. And they approved the regulations so that we present the regulations before the Cabinet Committee. The Cabinet Committee also approved that the regulations were ready for consultation, and the Minister signed the Cabinet memo for the regulations to be presented to Cabinet. The regulations were also approved by Cabinet, and the following step was for the Minister to approve the publishing of the regulations in the Government Gazette for a 60-day comment. So as we speak, the regulations have been gazetted for public comment. We have started receiving some of the inputs around the regulations. So in 60 days' time, we should be through with this process of the comments. And a service provider has been appointed to conduct the consultations. And one would ask, why the service provider? This is a Section 76 Act, and it affects the provinces, it affects the communities directly. And the protocol prescribes for us to present this Act and its subsequent regulations in the language of the communities. So as the office, we have a limitation in that regard because the regulations have been drafted between myself and Tom. Of course, Professor Slady was also involved in looking at whether the regulations were still responding to the Act. And in the process, we also were assisted by our legal service to look at the legal implications and the correctness of the regulations. I also need to indicate that we have consulted with the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, who also made inputs into the regulations. And their role was to look at the constitutionality of the regulations, because most of the time our legislations are challenged by the courts, maybe on the basis of the processes followed or on the unconstitutionality of the content. So it has to be approved by the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor to make sure that on implementation, we are not faced with that issue. So these are the legal prescripts that we have drafted, honorable members, which are part of the processes that need to be followed by the third parties as they access as they intend to access the communities and their genetic resources. To some extent, these legal prescripts will be found in the registration system. So when the third party accesses the registration system, he will be or she will be confronted with these legal prescripts. All of them have been developed. The prior informed consent, which is a document that must be concluded by the third party and the communities before they begin any other project that they want to engage on. So the benefit sharing non-disclosure agreement, material transfer agreement has been developed. The license agreement has been developed. All applications regarding the recognition of prior learning and the registration forms and the community resolution forms, all of those legal prescripts we have developed there. This is just a slide that shows the activities that needed to be conducted and the status of those and the responsibility as well of those activities. If you look at the first part of the slide, it's the publication of draft regulations, as I indicated, that has been done. So what's remaining now is the last two, which will be the consolidation and analysis of public comments following the consultation. And then once we have consolidated those, we will have a revised version of the regulations, which we will then submit to EXCO. Upon approval, the regulations will be approved, but that process is also a process that we need to follow after the EXCO recommends, and then the submission, the regulations will be submitted to Parliament. After that submission to Parliament, the minister will approve the regulations, and then they will be published to the Government Gazette. We are anticipating that at the most, second quarter of 2023, if not the first, that is when the final regulations will be published in the Government Gazette for the implementation of the Act. So I'm done now with the regulations. Talking about the Special Service Delivery Unit, one of the critical provisions of the Act is the establishment of the office, whose function would be to implement the IK Act in its entirety. So the steps that have been taken towards that is we commissioned GTEC of the National Treasury to assist us with the feasibility study and the business case for the SSDU. All those documents were presented to EXCO and they were approved. So after the approval of the two documents, they were submitted to the interdepartmental committee that comprising DSI, the National Treasury, and DPSA. And the recommendations of that interdepartmental was that the DSI must develop a funding model for the SSDU, a service delivery plan for the SSDU, an implementation plan for the SSDU, and a business case. And on the 2nd of May, 2022, EXCO approved all those documents for further processing with the interdepartmental committee. So to date, all the documents have been submitted to PSA. On the 28th of November, we are due to meet with DPSA and National Treasury to discuss the way forward based on the documents that were sent to them for consideration. In terms of the recognition of prior learning, we have identified 16 disciplines. I'm not going to present on the RPL per se, but I am going to present the work that we have started to do in response to the 16 disciplines that have been identified under the recognition of prior learning. The Smart Village and Indigenous Knowledge Technologies. We have partnered with 3 universities, Tswana University of Technology, University of Venda, and University of Northwest. The concept around the smart village is based on using indigenous architecture to establish the smart villages, which are a multidisciplinary concept, a fairly new concept in the world, I would safely say, where we are trying to use indigenous knowledge, technologies for social inclusion, to decentralize economy, to address the three challenges that government is grappling with. So this multidisciplinary concept considers the buildings themselves, which will be mixed use buildings. In other words, we are trying to say, instead of people moving to the cities in search of jobs, there must be job opportunities that are created through the smart villages, because we will be having your offices of home affairs there, we'll be having your post offices, we will be having your indigenous farming, we'll be having your animal husbandry activities happening there. We have realized that even with our youth that have just graduated and they are staying in the villages, it takes time for them to access the internet cafes, just an ordinary thing that we will take for granted as people who are living in the cities. They struggle to get to fax and email their CVs in search of employment. So if we have that facility in the villages through the smart village, we will then have easy access to all the commodities that we require as the communities. So we are currently piloting that program in Nyandeni in the Eastern Cape. We received a letter of endorsement from the King Damase, and he's very excited about the project because, one, it is addressing the issues that they are facing in the village, which will include early teenage pregnancy, drug abuse, and everything that you can think of. So we are currently piloting that project. We are on the phase 2 of it. Feasibility studies have been done, reports have been submitted. We are now in the process of finalizing the master plan, which will then give us an idea of how this smart village is going to look like. We have also been working with University of Fort Hare, who helped us with the GIS to establish where the resources are exactly and look at the landscape of the areas. We have identified 3 communities there who will be working as part of the smart village. But even though we only have 3 villages, looking at the resources that they have, taking advantage of what is already in place, all the communities around Enyandeni will benefit because the road infrastructure has to be developed. And to that extent, we are working closely with the Department of Roads and Transport. The Department of Health will be involved because we are looking at how we can bring clinics, which will be working in collaboration with our indigenous practitioners so that we have all the necessary resources for communities to decide whether they want to be subjected to the Western system or they want to be subjected to the indigenous system of health, or they want a combination of both. We will be working with the Department of Mineral Resources, because we have a lot of resources in that area and they have to be on board. So that's why I was saying it's a multidisciplinary approach that will require all the government departments to be on board. In terms of the smart village, when I'm almost concluding, is we were invited by this Eastern Cape legislature to present the concept. And upon presentation, they were excited about this, and they invited other portfolio committees, because the one that we were presenting to was the economic cluster. So they are in the process of convening a meeting that will encompass all the portfolio committees, so that each one is able to identify a niche within the project. We presented the concept at OR Tambo municipality. We also presented the concept at the Nyandeni local municipality. Nyandeni municipality has then taken the smart village concept to their integrated development plan. And they have identified it as one of the areas that they would talk to when they do their provincial, what is this? The reporting, when they do the reports at their provincial gatherings. So we are excited with the project because it seemed to be addressing how we can use Indigenous knowledge for diplomacy in addressing issues of climate change, in addressing issues of food security and any other related issues. So these are the recommendations that I was talking about. State of the province address, it will be one of those. And it will also be moved to the State of the Nation address by the people from the legislature. And I indicated that the University of Forte has assisted in the GIS, and the master plan is in the process of conclusion. We also identified Indigenous astronomy, and these are the activities that have happened. We successfully hosted an international Indigenous astronomy conference in Northwest. I think this happened in March, thereabout. So out of this conference, a council was established, which is representative of all the 9 provinces in South Africa. And the rationale behind the establishment of this council is so that they are going to be the part of what we call the discipline of competency. And they will be able to be accredited by the office. And in return, they will be able to assist us in the certification of practitioners in that space. The last part that we have tried to tackle is the indigenous mining. We identified Mpumalanga for this purpose, specifically Umkhondo municipality. And in our quest to follow through on this, we started by convening a mining workshop, which also talked to the realities around indigenous mining in that area and how we can be able to beneficiate communities that still have knowledge on indigenous mining and what impact they are having in the mines as they are currently. So we are in the process of preparing for a conference that is scheduled for February 2023. In this conference, we are in the process of inviting the minister at DMR so that we can be able to have a cross-pollination of information on how the mainstream mining can work with the indigenous mining and how the indigenous mining activities can maybe influence policies that we currently have as a country, so that indigenous mining is also included in those strategies. The very, very last one, which we are still trying to get to, is the animal husbandry. So we have identified 2 communities in Eastern Cape, East London and Butterworth. And the target disciplines are dog and cattle breeding. And we've just received a concept document that deals with all the nuances around the discipline and the actual disciplines that we have identified. I think that brings me to the end of my presentation, honorable members. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shumi. I assume Katie will take us now through the IK registration system.
Thank you, DDG and honorable members. The IK registration system, as like Gugu from the CSIR said, before the enactment of the Act, we are working on the National Recordal System, which was supporting the IKS policy of 2004, which was about protection, development, and management of IK, and whereby we have to have a recordal system in place. So in the quest to record the knowledge of communities through South Africa, the DSI, in partnership with the Council for the Scientific and Industrial Research, developed a technology solution to facilitate all those processes that will support the documentation, with the aim now to register, because now we've got the Act, that knowledge to be registered in the registration system. So how are the processes? What the DSI and the CSIR in then went to different communities in South Africa. Can we go to the next slide? So in order to reach the communities of South Africa, the DSI and the CSIR developed the processes whereby community leadership, together with the traditional leadership and the DSI, they convene on what is the quest for this mission. How do we identify credible people within the community that can represent the knowledge of the community? And that was done through the steering committees. So the steering committee, they veto the people who will participate. And the DSI and the CSIR developed the technology in which they use laptops and video cameras to record the knowledge of those people in their indigenous languages. Of course, the system, it is in English, but the recording remains in their indigenous languages. And the metadata that was developed then, it was to cater for the indigenous food and African traditional medicine, because it was research that most South Africans depend on the traditional medicine. So in that quest, we needed to get the knowledge from the knowledge holders about how did they acquire the knowledge, how are they using the knowledge, and in what format is it used. The next slide. Like I said before, we went to different provinces of South Africa. So with the DSI, with the legal system, we draft contracts. In Limpopo, we have a contract with the University of Venda. As much as we have the contract with the University of Venda, it is the custodian with the communities in the Venda region, the Vembe district. We work with the Sentimule community, we work with the Davana and the Muteles, and we still go into other communities. So after a certain while, we move from one community to another. In Mpumalanga, the DSI has a contract with the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency. It is an agency for the environmental affairs. And in Mpumalanga, we cover all the districts of Mpumalanga. Buchabela, Ehlanzeni, all of them, they are documented within the registry, the documentation center. And then in KwaZulu-Natal, we started first up in the north with the University of Zululand, where we piloted with the Umhlawalingana, Nkandla, and the Mkwanazi community within the Ngoye. And then down there in eThekwini, we partner with the University of KwaZulu-Natal, whereby we're working with the Mapepeta communities, the Inanda communities, and Ikopo and Ngolosi. And then in the Eastern Cape, we just started now with the Walter Sisulu University, But prior to working with Walter Sisulu University, we used to work with the University of Fort Hare, where we documented the knowledge from the Kala, Tengiwe, and the Tsolo region. And then due to structural problems within the university, they would not accommodate the project. Hence, we moved to Walter Sisulu University, where now we are working with the Kofimbaba community. We've just concluded the memorandum of understanding with the Tamata Great Place and with the King Matanzima there to start documenting the knowledge within that area. And then in the Northern Cape, we partner with a consortium from South African San Council, South African San Institute, and the Komani San Institute. We've been documenting the knowledge from the people there in Komani San, the Koranas, the Gu, the Kwe, and the Koran, the Kwi, the Kwen, and the Koranas. And then in the Western Cape, we have a contract with the Cape University, Cape Peninsula University of Technology, CPUT. We've been working with the Atakwa community in the Ghana land. So we've documented and recorded the knowledge in the Ghana land, Deseldorp, and Zua. And in the Northwest, initially we started working with the Bakata Bakafela Traditional Authority, but then 2 years later, they wouldn't accommodate the project anymore. So currently we have a contract with the Northwest University in the Mafikeng campus. We will be documenting, recording the knowledge within the Mafikeng regions. And in the Free State, we have a contract with the University of Free State. We started working with the Tabansho community. Then now we moved to Bethany and Grashoek and other communities within the Thabo Mofokeng district. And Gauteng, we have a contract with the Gauteng Provincial Sports and Government Department. We started working in Mpumalanga, not in Mpumalanga per se, but in Sokolumi. It's in the east of Pretoria. And then now we are at Magaliesberg, with the Magaliesberg community. That's where the documentation is. Next slide. And then the technology, how does it work? Google, would you like us to take us through this, or must I go through the technology, how it shows what we catalog?
Please proceed, Kidi. If the members would like to see the system, then we can demonstrate the actual system, but you can go through the presentation.
Yeah,
Okay.
at a later stage, it would be nice to go through the system.
All right.
So for now, I can continue. Thank you.
So in the system, like I said before, any IK holder can be documented. They have to sign first the prior informed consent and the non-disclosure agreement on the IK holder. So each IK holder is linked to that, and the theme, it will be traditional medicine or indigenous food, and the days, and then how it works. Once the IK holder has agreed, like, okay, I have the knowledge, we go deeper. We have the video that goes through how is this medicine made? How is this food made? And how is it benefiting an individual? Like culturally, this food, if it's only for women or for men, why is it that? And then how can we develop the claim in further for future generation to continue eating such food for their livelihoods? And here it's just showing the graphical representation of how much we have on traditional medicine, how much we have on indigenous food. And then the demographic side of it shows the males and the females in the system. Although we don't have the age groups, but it's very important with us. We are strategic to have all the generations integrated in the system so that the knowledge can be transferred from one generation to another. Next slide. And this is even more about the languages that are used within the different provinces. In every indigenous knowledge system centers, you see that's the percentages there from the Zulu, the Afrikaans, Tshivenda, Setswana, Sesotho, Sepedi, Siswati, Griqua, and Isindebele. And next slide on the system. Oh, since the system now it's being prepared for the launch so that all these communities can register, we have created the portal whereby people can go in to check, okay, what is the relevance of us within the IK Act? What is DSI doing in terms of even including the knowledge that universities have on indigenous knowledge is in the form of pharmacopoeia, because the pharmacopoeia is the knowledge from communities. However, the researchers have made it, packaged it in a way that they can easily check what kind of traditional medicine is there, which treatment is being used, and where it is. Yeah, this is another part of the landing page of the portal, when you can just see what we have in the National Indigenous Management System. Like I said before, we've got traditional medicine. This is a Setswana version of some medication. And even the portal, it shows any community promotional information. All the provinces, they've got their uniqueness, their indigenous structure, what stands out. So this is an example of the Northern Cape Griqua community. Another more on the pharmacopoeia, how it's been packaged, what treatments are there, which plants, and these plants have happened to be indigenous plants. I think I will end here.
Thanks. Rebecca, do you want to take over with your team now?
So, Chair, we're going to now, like I said, in terms of, protecting the knowledge, putting in place the proper regulations around IKS-based technologies, it happens in Program 4, but then downstream in Program 2, we actually work towards the commercialization, ensuring that commercialization is inclusive. So part of our efforts are towards funding to ensure that, the inclusivity of the commercialization, making sure that it happens in South Africa and not abroad in other countries. But then also, I think part of the work we do is actually taking, working with SAPA to ensure that the medicines and the natural medicines platform products are actually able and readily for market. And then last but not least, I think we spend a lot of money on infrastructure to ensure that the beneficiation of the bio-based IK products can occur. So I'm going to hand over the floor to Dr. Ankh Shabalala. And then before he comes in, I just want to say that it's critical to note that our innovation around African traditional medicines and indigenous knowledge technologies is actually considered world-class. A few weeks ago, we had a delegation in South Africa from the World Health Organization, and they were assessing South Africa's African traditional medicines. And the end state was that South Africa has a key role to play in the African continent to assist other African countries with the beneficiation of their indigenous knowledge system. So Dr. Shabalala, floor over to you.
Thank you so much, DDG, and to the honorable members, Namilosa. What I'll be talking on will be really the core for our work on Indigenous Knowledge-Based Bioinnovation Program. And we were requested to speak a little bit on PANZA. Although we are just the co-chairs of this, the most appropriate department will be the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. And then I'll conclude on the African Natural Medicines Platform. And you also wanted to know in terms of our work with medical cannabis. The next slide, please. Our work is actually done through the IK Based by Innovation program, which is a consortium of government departments, sometimes even at municipal level, then university science councils and indigenous knowledge holder organizations. And today we'll say indigenous knowledge-based small medium enterprises. Next slide. So the program is made up of 6 platforms. One in African natural medicines, the cosmeceuticals, which looks into health and beauty and wellness, the nutraceuticals, which looks into food and nutrition, health infusions with all the various beverages. These 4 are research, development, and innovation intensive, and they are supported by 2 more platforms. One on technology transfer and incubation and demonstration, more technology demonstration as a tool. Then we look into commercialization and entrepreneurship. I must say that in terms of commercialization, we just demonstrate that these things can be commercialized. And of course, we help our indigenous communities with entrepreneurship skills for them to be proper businessmen and women. Our work, of course, is predicated on Agenda 2063 and Vision 2030. And today, the DSI's, well, the South African Decadal Plan. Part of our work focuses on the Pan-African agenda as per Agenda 2063. And of course, this cannot be done if we're not talking about indigenous knowledge systems. We are pro-poor, and we don't exclude the decolonial agenda, especially within the science sector, which really needs to transform in terms of research methodologies and several other things that concern this work. Next slide. We have certain strategic imperatives that can be best explained by the next slide, please. We have an Ubuntu-based by innovation model that straddles innovation and manufacturing and commercialization. The centerpiece of the model is that all our work is based on indigenous knowledge. So the concepts, the ideas are informed by African knowledge systems. We conduct integral research in that around one project, for example, you'll find different sectors, different fields. The integral aspect will include, let's say, pharmacology or chemistry or people that will come from humanities, people who come from economics. We do inclusive innovation in that whatever products that we come up with, the knowledge holders decide what it is that they want. All we do is to advise on how to best come up with solutions. If knowledge comes from Umhlabelingana, we then do local technology transfer, meaning that the holders of the knowledge will be the first ones, or the village or the community will be the first ones to receive tech transfer beneficiations. And of course, we look into holistic enterprise development, which includes working with various incubators where we train the indigenous knowledge holders into entrepreneurship skills. And of course, conscious commercialization talks to the importance of green economies, the importance of sustainability, because we're dealing with the biodiversity, and of course, organic agribusinesses. This model is not necessarily linear. So whilst we are doing integral research, products may be commercialized at the same time, because these things are being used in our communities anyway. The innovation part of the work, from IK-based conception to early tech transfer, we have TIA, the Technology Innovation Agency, that then takes care of that in terms of the funding. And we then have the IDC, Industrial Development Cooperation, that takes on the projects from late tech transfer into commercialization. Next slide. And of course, at the back of our minds, we always have the poor and the marginalized as the target, as the beneficiaries. However, the impact is what drives us. Within the National System of Innovation, we like to interface IKS. And in terms of the knowledge holders, we like to build this enterprising culture. And of course, build at the end of the day, would like to then valorize this into African industries, large-scale African industries, as we'll demonstrate in a bit. Highest impact is that we should create wealth and thriving societies, as you saw from our colleagues that presented on smart. Our colleagues that presented on smart technologies or smart villages. Next slide. Okay. Now you wanted to know about.
Mic that's open. Shumi, if you could, Ms. Tango, can you please switch your mic off so that there's no interruption coming through? Thank you. You may continue.
Thank you.
Is Anka mute?
Yes, he is muted.
Anka, I think
I
you
was
need to
actually
unmute.
talking and my mic, I kept asking that we unmute him.
Yeah, I can't hear him either. Okay.
Okay. So sorry, I didn't realize that I was muted. My apologies. So on the BioPanza, what I was saying is that the BioPanza initiative was born out of the bioeconomy and biodiversity and economy and our biodiversity strategies between the two departments of environment and science and innovation. There are 5 main pillars which look into regulatory aspects, which Shumi spoke on, then sustainability, which is chaired by the Department of Environment. We also chair the innovation cluster and the DTIC, but through TIA and IDC, then they facilitate the work that looks into the finance structure. We strongly recommended that we should bring in the Department of Small Business Development to look into enterprise development. And of course, the DTIC chairs the market access, especially in terms of commercialization. And as I said, TIA and IDC are part of the finance part of this initiative. Next slide. So the idea is that our work, even including the BioPanza, should straddle the entire innovation value chain, the entire ecosystem. So when you look into the work that we do from IK-based bio-innovation all the way into beneficiation, you'll see that there are various government departments that are involved, from national, provincial, including at district level. And as you heard from my colleagues, we involve the royal and the tribal authorities and municipalities as well. And as I said, the whole program has academic institutions, science councils, small, medium enterprises, and some of the hubs. Next slide. Is the same concept. Next slide. Now, the BioPanza is supported by a fund which we launched in 2019. It's called the Natural Indigenous Products Program, or the NIP program. The idea is that as a country, we should be able to identify priorities, research, development, and innovation priorities for technical manufacturing and commercialization support, not coming from one department. And then collectively, as a collective, we should identify funding models that would then lead to us deciding as to who's supposed to be funded using various due diligence mechanisms. But in terms of the funding aspect, we're saying that there should be a one-stop shop where all the money is thrown in, and whoever is interested in doing work in IKS can then access that funding from there. And of course, co-funding with various government departments, the IDC, or even the industries. It's something that I think the DG and the minister are talking about a lot these days, that we need to invite industry to participate in IKS as well, so that we may come up with world-class manufacturing industries. Next slide. Now, in terms of the work that we're doing, as you see, we move from research and development all the way to piloting manufacturing initiatives. And of course, in terms of our funding, we're pushing for ring-fence funding within the tier, that 50% of that funding should cover African medicines because they are very, very expensive, especially clinical trials. Then 20% goes to nutraceuticals and cosmeceuticals, and 10% to health infusions. Currently, we have put down 26 million into the NIP program as the DSI. This money is shared between TIA and IDC, and I was informed that the IDC is putting down, has committed 16 million as part of the support of this initiative, and the DTIC, I think between the DTIC and DEF, they are putting down 50 million in the new financial year. So we're piloting 6 projects in the meantime, so that as from next year, this NIP fund can then be fully implemented. Next slide. This is just an example of what we're doing in terms of African medicines. For example, our concept now is that instead of building small pre-processing facilities, it's important that at community level, we focus more on agribusinesses where we grow and pre-process. The structures that you see on top, the shading structure and the white building, this is in the Eastern Cape, where we have in Janjongo, where we are putting down these agribusinesses, but also pre-processing facilities at community level, so that we don't reduce our people into modern day slaves, but they can actually commercialize pre-processed products. Then what you see in the next two pictures is the one is that we're entering into some agreement with industries in the Free State, where we put down 57 million to build a CGMP lab, but also a CGMP manufacturing facility, which will be linked to a wellness center, meaning a clinic, where we'll then start piloting what most of you may know that China has done or India has done in terms of coming up with hospitals and clinics that are based on traditional or natural medicines. We'll also have a pharmacy attached to this initiative. So we hope that the CGMP lab we should finish building this maybe by the end of the year, and then we'll start then putting equipment for the manufacturing as from April next year. That's really the bigger concept moving forward. Next slide. When it comes to the medicines in general, so the medicines or the African medicines form part of the health part of the decadal plans. The idea is that, or what we're working on now, members will know that the South African Health Act was declared unconstitutional because it actually excluded other forms of medicines as proper medicines. So we initiated work with SAPRA, where the working committee that advises us recommended that we come up with category E for African medicines. And phase 2 of this work will be starting soon, where we'll be writing some of the pieces of the legislation to go into the new act, and also regulations that will regulate preparatory African medicines as category E, meaning that these medicines will end up in clinics for medical use. The SAPRA also has constituted committees that then look into the evaluation of African medicines clinical trials. This is really a step forward, because before they will use people who do not have any experience in African medicines, and we always face challenges in that people that do not understand indigenous knowledge were evaluating our proposals and they were just rejecting them. So we are now starting to see African medicines clinical trials being approved and being conducted. The bigger dream, especially within the PANZA, is that we should focus on high-end current good manufacturing practices industries. And as I said in the previous slide, we're already starting with this. The idea is that these medicines should end up as part of the essential medicines or essential drug list for medical or clinical use. We are now also thinking very strongly together with the Department of Health, especially after getting the kudos from the WHO and Africa CDC, that we need to start implementing these holistic health systems where we'll have medicines or clinics or hospitals that are strictly based on African medicines. And next is to then look into curriculum development so that we come up with medical degrees like China, India, Japan, Korea, that now start teaching African medicines in universities as well. Next slide. You also wanted to know about cannabis. Next slide. No, please go back. The cannabis master plan, just go back to that slide. The cannabis master plan is co-checked. Thank you so much. It's really managed by different departments, but the DSI is responsible for research, development, and innovation aspect of the master plan. From our side, what we have done, again, to demonstrate and not just to talk about these things, is that we received 15 million and we put 7 million for the renovation of the infrastructure at the CSIR so that we start doing high-end pharmaceutical grade medical cannabis products. And then the 8 million went to up to 20 small medium enterprises that we just selected a few months ago. And we had the Department of Small Business and the Gauteng Department of Agriculture and Rural Development joining us. And we trust that other government departments will then join us. I think they came in with 800,000 Gauteng and then 2 million from small business. So we are demonstrating that this work can be done. And all the small medium enterprises are owned by Indigenous knowledge holders or are owned by the youth and women who are working with Indigenous knowledge holders from across the country. I think only Northern Cape, if I'm not wrong, we didn't find anyone, but I guess from the small business tranche, we should be able to get some small medium enterprises from the Northern Cape. Next slide. I think this slide, I spoke on this slide from the picture that the DSI in the decadal plan is looking into these issues of shifting the regulations, cleaning up the clinical trial space, coming up with industries, developing curriculum, and of course, our health facilities. Next slide. Of course, we work with the regulators. You know, our SAPRA, as I said, the South African Bureau of Standards. We chair the African Region Advisory Committee of the WHO. And of course, as DDG said, we had the European and developing countries on clinical trials and partnerships coming into the country together with the CDC to look into what we're doing, and they think that we should provide leadership on the continent. We also chair some of the initiatives within the intellectual property and the standards in the continent. So one of our healers actually is the chair of the African medicine standards within the continent. Next slide. I'll just conclude by saying that also the IKS is identified as part of the new sources of growth within the decadal plan, and the idea is that we need to go ahead with institutionalization of IKS, and EXCO just approved the bioinnovation, the IK-based Bioinnovation Institute, and we're just doing some consultation so that we put this thing together. And of course, everything else is what I spoke about in terms of the research and development, coming up with innovation hubs and parks, and all those smart villages, enterprise development, high-end manufacturing, and ultimately commercialization through the PANZA. Next slide. This is just an example of some of the facilities that we put in the communities. They are really high level, and we also put this manufacturing, pre-processing equipment in communities. And with some of the funding that we get elsewhere, like from the European Union, we also get them motor vehicles for them to be able to commercialize their products. Next slide. Yes, we have all these farms that are given by either municipalities or tribal authorities, where then the Indigenous knowledge holders are now organized into a proper agribusinesses, and they get trained. Next slide. They get trained through a 6 month by entrepreneurship program at the Innovation Hub, and also we bring in the South African Bureau of Standards for them to appreciate the importance of having high quality, safe and efficacious products. Next slide. And of course, we graduate them, they get certificates. And this year we graduated 37 small medium enterprises, whereby there were 59 graduates. We have the list and we may share with you. I think from the previous meeting, you wanted to know who these small medium enterprises are. We have compiled the list and we are able to share with you those small medium enterprises and where they are in the country. Next slide. And we work together with the DTIC, as I said, within the PANZA, whereby usually the IKS, our IKS small medium enterprises will have special exhibition stands, including in the initiatives that are run by the DSI. We are often given a special space where we highlight the work of indigenous knowledge holders to tell the African story within the science system. Next slide. Impact, some of the highlights is that we've got maybe now up to 15 IK-based laboratories, strictly IK-based laboratories across science councils and universities. And of course, 2 units now at TIA and the IDC. We have up to 30 flagship projects. We're working with 3 incubators. We have 14 patents at PTC. We have just over 55 small medium enterprises that we're supporting, or cooperatives, 9 agribusinesses. We will be supporting the Bachelor of Indigenous Knowledge Systems students from the Northwest and Univen with the entrepreneurship program, which we've been doing with SMMEs. We have over 100 high-end products which are being commercialized, and we're targeting for new CGMP manufacturing facilities led by the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal. We're looking into Limpopo and also here with the CSIR. Next slide. And also we have a number of collaboration, commercialization licenses or even agreements with some of the high-end retailers in the country. We will also compile all of this so that we maybe next time we should be able to tell you where our products are going, who are the organizations that are partnering with us, and what are the nature of beneficiation as well. Next slide. Income.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is the end of the presentation, the formal presentation. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Hopefully you are as impressed as I am with the IKS portfolio at the Department of Science and Innovation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maseramole and the entire team. Let me see if DG is still on the platform. DG, Mjwaha, Mr. Patel, and to all all colleagues on the platform. Thank you very much for that presentation. Indeed, I think, okay, can someone can we stop sharing the slide? And then can I please be made co-host? Because I feel very incapacitated. Can the host please make me a co-host? Thank you. Okay, so again, thank you very much to all colleagues for those presentations. It's always very exciting, of course, to interact with DSI. I don't know if we want to afford some of the colleagues, the beneficiaries. Dr. Maseramole, I don't know how you had planned it from your side, if you're just going to give us the presentation or if you are going to allow for some of the beneficiaries to share what they're doing, just to give us, a sense of that before we go into questions and so forth from members. I see Ms. Pango's hand is up. So let me take that first before I go to Doc.
Thanks, Chair. As I indicated in the introduction, we have Utsile Madidzi from the University of Northwest. He's one of the beneficiaries of the Bachelor of Indigenous Knowledge. Maybe in terms of the process, we might want to start with him if the chair allows us to say something about what the BIKS is doing, also in line with the disciplines that we have identified for the recognition of prior learning. Thanks, Chair.
Sure, okay. Dr. Masiramule, anything from your side before we hand over to the beneficiaries?
I've looked at the attendees. I saw Baba Mabena had joined. Also, I've seen that Mr. Tuseko Matabata had also joined. Baba Mabena is a beneficiary. He's our elder for the African Medicines and Cosmeceuticals platform. And then Mr. Matabata, he's a male youth nutraceuticals platform. So I think maybe we can let them tell their story, how we are, how we're benefiting. And if I don't think we're afraid to even hear if they want to complain or maybe bring to the fore something else they may need us to do. I mean, I will say to you, Chair, I mean, this portfolio is so impressive. Like when you go to the grocery store, you could be buying products from beneficiaries from this program. I've done it. I have this tea called Ceton tea that was funded through and so forth through us. And I didn't even know it's on the shelves as we speak. So this is one of the most relevant platforms in the DSI stable. And I think if you hear directly from the beneficiaries, what the benefits are, what they're actually doing, very awesome things, I think also you will also be just as impressed as I am with this portfolio. So I'm not sure how much time you want to give to the beneficiaries. I'm not sure if you want 5 minutes each max, and then I'll leave it to you, Chair, to manage how long you want to listen to them.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. So let's start with Ubab Mabena. So let's start with you, and then we'll then move to the other two beneficiaries. So we'll give each beneficiary maybe just over 5 minutes to make their presentation. Of course, not to, of course, limit your contributions, because for us as a committee, the reason why when we wanted to get this briefing from the department, we said, can you bring us the beneficiaries? Can you bring us the people who are doing the work, so that the presentations from the department don't become just mere presentations, but they become something that we as a committee can truly believe and be brought into confidence on the progress we're making in relation to that. So the floor is yours, colleague. And if we can all just switch on our cameras, even if we're switching on our cameras just for like 10 seconds, if we see who's speaking, and then you can switch it off afterwards.
Good morning, everybody. Ngiyabonga abaphathi bami ababuye eParliament, abaphathi bami ababuya kuma department Science and Tech Innovation, CSIR, ARC, abawubona abangiphethe abangincede kakhulu. I would like to say thanks. We support ngithola ku government, especially monetary wise and skills wise. My name is Ephraim Gamapena. I'm the founder member of Mutung African Heritage in Mamelodi. I must say thanks, and I must quickly indicate what are the benefits, what I've benefited from, both government, Department of Science and Technology, and other stakeholders. Firstly, let me say we've benefited as communities, especially educational-wise. We are able to learn about, we have learned a lot about cultivation and horticulture and permaculture as well, and pest control and soil testing and landscaping as well. And I must say that Mutung has benefited all these, courses. And also the job creation that has been created in the communities. More especially, we are having about plus minus 6 farmers who are actually looking after, our our farm, of which even if it is not that big, but really I can say that they are able, these community members are able to put, the food on the table. And also I must indicate that I must say thanks, because Motung was able to be part of the delegation to India in 2011, especially on program exchange. So that was an opportunity, a person like myself to go to India and learn how other countries are doing, especially on traditional medicine. And that was a great opportunity. And then I must say that other things that we have benefited more especially from the government is the Department of Science and Technology, and they were able to help Motung to access, the land, of which most of indigenous knowledge holders are having a problem in accessing the land. The land issue is the problem. So I would like to say, I'm looking forward, and as collectively as communities, we are looking forward to learn more, especially now we are going to learn about how to process, how to, we'll be able to sell our product, because the history about traditional medicine and the practitioners, we know that, as traditional medicine practitioners, we were practicing under what you call, and under what I call Witchcraft Act. But again, thanks for the government, to make sure that indigenous knowledge, medicine practitioners or knowledge holders are able to work hand in glove with, the department. And of which our country must be very, very proud about that. Other countries are still, having the problem of, recognizing, indigenous knowledge holders. That I must say, and applause, the South African government. I would like to stop there, but I must, I'm putting my hands together to say thanks for the government to see that indigenous knowledge practitioners are taken very, very, very serious by the government. I thank you all. Thank you.
Siyabonga kakhulu Baba Mabhena for that input and those reflections that you have made in terms of how you've been able to benefit from the program of the Department of Science and Innovation. Okay, I just want to see. So, Dr. Masemola, the next beneficiary that we are going to receive an input from will be?
I just got a message that Ms. Bertang Pacha from Limpopo province is also on the phone. on the Zoom call as well. So I think, can we take Mr. Tabata first and then Ms. Pacha after.
Okay, so we've just had Baba Mabhena, then we're going to have Ms. Patla.
Yeah, and then after that,
Mr. Matabata.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the last one
would be the I think the student who received, the graduate from who received the bachelor's in Indigenous Knowledge Systems. I think Shami, what's the person's name?
I don't know if it's my network. Okay, Miss Mpango, what's the name there?
The name is Utsile Maditsi.
Okay. I just want to make sure I have everyone lined up so that I don't go back and forth. Okay, Maditsi. All right. Is it Mr. or Miss?
It's Mr.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna have Ms. Patla, Mr. Matabata, and then Mr. Maditsi. So we'll end with young people. I also don't know if Ms. Patla or Mr. Matabata are young or old, but I have a sense already that Mr. Maditsi is a youngin. So let me go Let me go directly to Ms. Patla to make her presentation. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody, to all the stakeholders. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Ratang Pasha, and I'm the CEO of Sejong Tea Crafters. We are a indigenous tea manufacturing company that's based in Limpopo. We work in the Sekhukhune region, and we've combined two communities, one being Rapahla village and Ramatlala Ramushibo in the Marble Hall region. We're currently working from Ramatlala Ramushibo in Marble Hall, and we have worked on developing and commercializing two indigenous plants, one being the Tepane Black Bush tea and the other being the Dia Red Root tea from these two communities. Our first point was at the Department of Science and Innovation in 2017, and the Department of Science and Innovation afforded us an opportunity, firstly, to get our products tested and analyzed through the Agricultural Research Council and the CSIR to really validate the claims that were made by the communities, especially that, you know, with the Tepane Black Bush tea, with it containing properties to improve the immune system, balance hormones, and nourish the body, and the Dia Red Root tea assisting to reduce blood pressure and detox the body. So this assisted us to validate those claims. From there on, we went through to an incubator called Igoli Bio, where we learned a lot. We were able to put together a bankable business plan, but we also went through training and incubation in terms of managing the
Ms. Pasha, sorry,
yes.
I'm gonna ask that you switch your camera off. I mean, we were really enjoying. Well, firstly, you can imagine how excited I was when you opened your camera, and I realized you're a young woman. We are very biased in this committee towards young Black women. So when you opened your camera, I immediately got so excited. But we will have to ask you to switch your camera off because we're struggling with the network.
Okay.
Yeah, but thanks for having your camera on. You may continue.
Okay, yes. So once we graduated from incubation from Igoli Bio, we also went through the BIDC program where we were able to do some product development and get assistance in really developing our tea bag range. So, developing SOPs and designing packaging. We are currently still working more with the CSIR through funding from the DSI, and that funding has gone towards further product development. We're currently developing an iced tea range, which will be launched early next year. We're in the final stages of bottling and branding the iced tea range, which we think will assist us, we believe will assist us in more market penetration. We're also, some of the funds have also gone towards a sensory evaluation through Stellenbosch University, where Tepane and DRT are currently, as we speak, undergoing sensory evaluation. And that was the same team, I believe, that also did sensory for Honeybush and Rooibos. And then the big exciting part is the construction of our facility. So some of the funds from the DSI are also going towards the first phase of developing a tea manufacturing plant. And even through funds from the DSI, we've already been able to acquire certain equipment like a tea bag packing machine, a bowl cutter, and a solar dryer. So that machinery is already assisting us to improve our capacity while we're waiting for the plant the factory to be built, and construction is planned to start next year, but an architect has already been appointed, which is finalizing the plans to submit to the local municipality for approval. So we're making strides in that regard. And through the DSI, we've also managed to get to the NIP fund that is hosted by IDC and co-funded by TIA. And we are in the final contracting stage for that, and that will assist us with further commercialization and market penetration, and also finishing the construction of our factory. So we have been able to so far create close to 30 jobs, and this is comprised of youth and women within the rural areas of Sekhukhune. We've consolidated 2 cooperatives into one, and a third entity called Summer Trading 87 into one holding company called Sejong Tea Crafters, where the 2 cooperatives actually hold 49% shareholding within Sejong Tea Crafters. So the community is a shareholder of Sejong Tea, and then the other percentage is Summer Trading, which is the vehicle for further development and market penetration. But we're really excited. And we're also working with the Agricultural Research Council through funding from the DSI as well, which is going towards cultivation of these indigenous plants.
Ms.
It's already,
Pasha,
yes.
Your network is not stable. Okay, can I check if it's me or if it's Ms. Pahla's network, Shanaz?
No, we can hear her properly. She's okay.
Okay,
She's clear. Okay, then it's me.
Okay,
Thanks,
I'll continue. Yes, so we're working with the Agricultural Research Council for the cultivation of the Dia and the Depane teas. And the trials were successfully done at ARC, and now they're being transferred to our site in Ramatlala Ramushibo. We've already depushed a hectare and preparing to fence and install a borehole and the drip irrigation system so that we can go on with the farming element of these crops, which will create additional jobs in the community. And yeah, so far we've managed to get the product onto shelves of outlets like Kalapeng Pharmacy, which has 23 outlets. We've got Spar grocery stores. And we also won a competition with Food Lovers Market early this year to supply all the Food Lovers Market outlets nationwide. And the DSI is currently assisting us to prepare for that. And we're aiming to be on the shelves in February next year. Thank you so much to the DSI, CSIR, Agricultural Research Council, TIA, and all the other stakeholders that have assisted us thus far. I'll stop there. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Patla. I don't know how long I was kicked out for, colleagues. I'm sorry. My network seems to be failing me a bit. Thank you very much, Ms. Patla, for that presentation and really exciting work that you're doing in that space. Can I now hand over to Mr. Matabata?
Morning, colleagues, and thank you, Chair. From a village in Popo, we've got a 40 hectare. At the village, we we are assisted by DSI through their IKS platform. As you all know, that Moringa is not indigenous, but it was indigenized through PANZA.
I can't hear.
I also can't. I was reluctant to say anything because of my network.
What DSI has helped us was through via, they help us. Can you guys hear me? Oh, audible.
We can hear you again. You may
Yes, so we were helped through DSI, IKS platform. He helped us with Moringa, how to plant it, how to cultivate it, how to harvest it, how to dry it, and how to make product out of it. So basically, when we started, we didn't know how to go about planting this Moringa. So there was through the DSI fund, they roped in ARC and VETS and CSIR. So ARC helped with through SABS, through standardization of how to cultivate and process Moringa. So with that program, we have planted over 5 hectares of Moringa, and through them we've done research. They've done research on various products. We have focused our products through our teas and capsules. They've also built us a pre-processing facility. We've got in the facility we've got tea bag machine, capsule making machine, pulverizer, and an air drying facility. So our products are we've blended our moringa with various tea blends. We've got moringa rooibos blend, we've got moringa ginger blend, we've got moringa lemon blend, we've got moringa grapefruit also. So also they've helped with through VETS chemistry. They've done a moringa shake for us. Through this shake, as you all know, that moringa is not easy on the palate. So what VETS did is they made an extract out of the raw powder. From that extract, it came in liquid, and that liquid, it was not easy to use. So they also spray dried that liquid, and then from that spray dried material, we did a health shake out of it. The community, we've got three co-ops that we're working with. We're helping them with how to plant moringa through ARC. So these communities are going to help us. They are going to be our feeders once we're getting the bigger market out there. So currently we are local spas. Our products are our local spas. We are in talks with clicks. This is early stages, national, and then also early stages with sandpacks through basically stage sandpacks at Kruger National Park, also early stages. So basically that's where we are, and we'd like to thank for this opportunity, DSI, TIA, ARC, and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matabata, for sharing that with us. Also very exciting to see how there's cross-collaboration with various institutions within the higher education, science and technology landscape, science, technology and innovation landscape. I'd like to now hand over to Mr. Maditsi.
Thank you very much. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, honorable members. I am Mutusuzile Maditsi, a lecturer and also a community engagement coordinator for the IKS Center at the Northwest University Mahikeng Delivery site. Let me just quickly switch off my camera. And I just want to talk about our program, the Bachelor of Indigenous Knowledge Systems, which is a 4-year program here at the Mahikeng Delivery site. The program is a baby of the university together with the Department of Science and Innovation, as they saw a need for an African-based knowledge system to also find its place within the higher education sector. And because of the IK Act, we know that this knowledge is pirated, it's stolen, it's misappropriated in a lot of areas, and then hence why the need to basically inculcate skills and train students who are passionate about indigenous knowledge to be the foot soldiers within our communities and make sure that this knowledge is valorized and it's developed in a manner that is acceptable and beneficiating the communities. The program, as I said, is a 4-year program, and then we've got what we call 4 electives. The 4 electives or the streams are arts and culture, science and innovation, health, and agriculture. And we are offering all the 4 streams within the Mafikeng delivery site. To date, we have a total, this year we had a lot of students, an influx of students from across the country, where we received 200 students. We had a total of 500 applicants, but because of capacity, we had to take only 200. And we've just been informed that we have another 2,000 applications for next year, so we have to also look through that one. So within the science and innovation stream, is one stream that was highly neglected. And Dr. Shabalala is talking about indigenous innovations. And that is one stream where we want to actually focus on and make sure that we create an avenue for students to actually go out there and assist in developing this indigenous knowledge, making sure that it is marketable and it's acceptable to the communities. Hence why we also have a call from the DTIC, the Innovation Hub, sorry. The Innovation Hub spoke to us and we had a meeting with them together with Dr. Ang, and we are thinking of enrolling some of our students, into a short course that's going to equip them with how to develop companies and make sure that they assist our indigenous communities. So far, we are trying to now bring about the other new streams. Ms. Pango was talking about indigenous mining as another leg of science that we are focusing on. And as the Northwest University, we want to nurture this science. Hence why we are even in talks with other institutions such as the Platinum Incubator in Rustenburg, where we are looking at the prospects of this indigenous mining and how we can actually incorporate it into the mainstream mining industry and making sure that our people and their knowledge get valorized and recognized. Hence the RPL process that we are also following to make sure that these people who have got so vast knowledge about indigenous mining can be recognized. Our program then continues to a master's and a PhD level, and that's where now we have a huge role to play together with the Department of Science and Innovation. I know Dr. Ang and Dr. Schaba are amongst the colleagues from the Department of Science and Innovation who are on board with assisting us to supervise and to promote studies within indigenous knowledge systems at the master's and PhD level. And with that regard, we are also trying to find avenues of creating decolonizing methodologies and also finding means of making sure that the knowledge of our people, the African knowledge, gets recognized, valorized, and receives its own prestige within the knowledge economy. I do not want to be too long because if I talk a lot about this program, we might be here for the whole day. So with that, colleagues, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you. And the last point, we have been working in conjunction with the Department of Science and Innovation on the IK Act and BCPs. And since the embarkment on these, we have a lot of communities who now realize the value of indigenous knowledge systems and thereby contacting us and trying to get the wheel rolling on developing their own cultural community protocols, which now brings about a new leg of saying there is a need for more funding so that we can train the people who will be going to our communities to assist the Department of Science and Innovation in doing these biocultural community protocols and enforcing the IK Act. With that, colleagues, thank you very much and thank you, honorable members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maditi. Can I check if there's anything else we would like to share this morning, Dr. Masaramule?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. No, Thank you, Chair. I believe all the beneficiaries that have been invited have presented. I mean, I did notice that CSR is on the line, and I'm not sure if you wanted anything from them in terms of the work they're doing. If you notice, as the beneficiaries spoke, the CSR showed, as well as ARC, but then I hear actually kind of showed up. So I'm not sure if Google from CSR would like to say something, maybe for a few moments around the work the CSR does to support IKS commercialization as well as the regulatory component in South Africa.
All right. Gugu.
Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Kalaba.
Thank you, Chair. It's not me actually who's responsible for that work. I think it's Dr. Sechaba.
Okay. Mr. Baritseng.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Once again, my name is Chaba Baritseng from the CSR, and I'm the IKS program manager. What we do at the CSR is very intentional in support of the South African legislation on IK, as well as other legislations which are driven at other government's department. So we are mainly responsible for community engagements, to identify the medicinal plants that we can do research and development on, to investigate the traditional uses, right? As well as undertaking product and process development. And all these beneficiaries that have spoken from the community level, we have really worked with them through the support of the Department of Science and Innovation in terms of funding to productize their indigenous knowledge systems into safe and high quality products, which they can commercialize themselves. And then also partnering with institutions such as the Innovation Hub, also through the facilitation of the Department of Science and Innovation. So this work is mainly to support this particular legislation on IK to ensure that we follow the requisite legal framework, such as the prior informed consent, material transfer agreement, and the benefit sharing agreement. And all this is mainly to support communities so that they can become entrepreneurial based on their indigenous knowledge systems, and to make money and to create the necessary jobs within their communities through the commercialization of their products, not only on the South African context, but also on the African and global level. So this is what we do. And then we have the new, not really new, they recently adopted the CSR industrialization strategy on industrial development, which has been formulated within the framework of the IK legislation, and then other legislation that are related to IK in support of government efforts to create jobs, alleviate poverty and inequality. Thank you so much, colleagues, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baritseng. Thank you very much to all colleagues who have presented this morning. At this point, I'd like to hand over to members for any comments and questions, recommendations. I think for me, it was really exciting to hear from the different beneficiaries. And it's also interesting how my assumptions of who would be the youngest were completely wrong. But really, what we're also seeing in the pool of beneficiaries that have presented to us is a generational mix, and that for us is very important. Representation, across the spectrum is very important. And thank you very much, colleagues, for sharing as well the work that you're doing. Also very exciting to see, as I said, when colleagues say Wits, for example, was assisting with some of the chemistry that goes into it, in trying to work on the taste of moringa and so on and so forth, when colleagues are saying this is a department of Indigenous knowledge that exists within this particular institution of higher learning. And I think for me, what would be really interesting to know is whether there's an increased sort of interest by citizens, particularly younger citizens, in sort of this more type of Indigenous knowledge type of work. And that reflection would be very interesting for me, particularly when we look at the registry. So when we look at the registry and who is contributing to it, when we look at the age gap, who's coming forth to contribute to that registry, that would be something that's very interesting to hear as well. And then I think if Honorable Mananiso was here, should be very excited to see how Indigenous languages have been incorporated into the portal as part of ensuring inclusivity. So that's very exciting. And of course, there's no ways that this particular program and its work would not ensure that it uses Indigenous languages in ensuring inclusivity. So that is only but what we would have expected from this program. And then there was a colleague who mentioned the fact that it is said that most South Africans use traditional medicine. What informed that particular statement? Where did we get those particular stats? Because that's a very, if there are stats to that. Okay, it's saying my network is unstable. If there are stats to that, that is very interesting information, and that would mean we need to do something about that in terms of how we support that. So yeah. So those are my comments for now. I will come in at a later stage with more. Let me hand over to Honorable Sibia, who already has her hand up, and call on members at this point to make their contributions to the engagements that we're having today. I'm sure the work, without trying to be Sangwamik at all, is also very excited to see, the interface between agriculture coming forth in these discussions. So I look forward to your inputs as well, Honorable Mahlatsi. Let me hand over to Honorable Sibia. Honorable Sibia.
Thanks, Chairperson. Good morning to everyone. And thanks a lot for a presentation from DSI. And let's appreciate even to bring along our beneficiaries. Thanks for sharing. Thanks a lot. My question is on national Indigenous knowledge. What are the focus areas of the IK Human Capital Development Program, and are TVETs accommodated within these programs? The other one, what are the current needs and future requirements of national Indigenous knowledge system? Are there any timeframes attached to the process of establishing NICSO as an SSDU? I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sibia. Honorable Mahlatsi.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to yourselves, members of the Portfolio Committee, our colleagues from the department, as well as the invited guests. Chair, first and foremost, one must actually appreciate the presentation, precisely because of what you have raised in relation to the incorporation of agriculture, with much more interest on the cannabis element, because I'm of a view that our SMMEs ought to be, especially coming from, our indigenous culture, should be the primary beneficiaries of this particular program. Because I want to believe historically, cannabis has been part of our culture, but because of, colonialism, to a large extent, it was banned. But I'm not sure whether one must say thanks to COVID or not, because had it not for COVID, to a large extent, we would not have this market being open in the manner in which it has. And most probably benefiting the marginalized and those who were put on the sidelines because of our historical path in the country. However, getting into the presentation itself, Chair, I've noted that the collaboration between the Department of DSI and other entities has been cemented, but there are no timeframes and fixed resources that are being committed. Precisely because on slide 39, the presenter did indicate that different entities have committed some amounts, but there was, or make not committed, have made some sort of agreement. I wouldn't want to say agreement, because if it's an agreement, that means it's committed. But there is amount of money that would be allocated to assist in the advancement of what we want to achieve. But it does not come clearly if these amounts, these resources are really committed to these projects. Secondly, the presentation does not give us clear timeframes. It's a beautiful presentation. This is what I will be doing together with this particular entity and so forth and so on. But there are no timeframes in terms of by when will we be able to achieve these collaborations in terms of the end product. On the presentation also, there is some reference made to a plant that has been put in the Free State. If I can get clarity in terms of where in the Free State is this plant being put for agro-processing and so forth and so on, so that one during constituency period is able to go and visit and see if indeed such a plan does exist and what are the developments thereof. My second last question, Chair, is around beneficiation. I want to check with the department, how have they identified the beneficiaries in this program and throughout the country? There was also an issue of limitations in as far as getting beneficiaries in the Northern Cape. It's quite concerning because, our inland provinces are historically your agricultural provinces. And most probably where you find your rural people. And if the Northern Cape, given its own historical path in as far as agriculture, as well as an element of, people belonging to your Griqua, your rooted, cultural people are either in the Northern Cape, in as far as your Griquas and your Sens and them, the Khois and the Sans, they belong in that particular province, and you would find in most cases they are the most sectoral individuals who are more concerned about the indigenous knowledge. So I find it very difficult that the department could not find, beneficiaries in that particular province. And what is it exactly what they're going to do to make sure that that particular province is accommodated in the processes? Lastly, Chair, I heard that the department, its main focus in as far as cannabis is concerned is at a research level. But one must indicate that with the master plan that is still on the rollout or in the process of being finalized, licenses are being given out. But in most cases, they're given out to the well-established, I wouldn't say entities, but well-established companies, whom at the end of the day, by the time the SMMEs come to play, the market would have been highly regulated. And in my view, they would have, the SMMEs will be left out. What is it that the department will be doing to make sure that as the process is running, small, medium enterprises are not left behind? And my last question, Chair, is when you identify these particular individuals who would be benefiting, especially your SMMEs, can we be taken through on this is how far they've been? I'm well aware of what the beneficiaries have presented here, but I'm worried about your ordinary, rural women who might not have had an opportunity to go to school and be, well educated around these issues. It's well and good to have young people participating in these processes, but our rural women must not be left behind. That's where I will stop, Chair, for now, that we be taken through. And we must also get a number of the current beneficiaries, as well as the number of those who are envisaged to be beneficiaries in this particular process. And also to check whether there are people with disabilities whom have been identified to participate in these processes, and whether there is an intention to expand the beneficiation in as far as resources are concerned, because we're speaking about 2,800,000 and so on. I don't think it's enough. Of course, we are taking cognizance of the fact that the department does not have sufficient resources. But if we were to really build these collaborations that we are speaking of, how do we make sure that we mobilize resources, even from the private sector, to be able to assist with this important initiative? But most importantly, Chair, I'm more worried about the Northern Cape as well as rural women whom have been part of this industry for quite some time, but have not been, commercialized. And the last part is, at this point, have we gone beyond borders of the country for purposes of commercialization? And if not, are there any initiatives to go beyond the borders of the country? And if there is a process that is currently running, how far is the process? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mahlatsi, and thank you very much to Honorable Sibia. On my side, if I were to just add a bit more, I think it's also exciting to see the concept and idea around smart villages. And then I'd like for colleagues to unpack on Indigenous astronomy and Indigenous mining. So when you've accounted for it, but let's say for the citizen who's sitting at home watching this this committee meeting on YouTube and have heard you account on the work you're doing in relation to Indigenous mining, who's responsible for what, that you've had a workshop on it, that you have had a conference on it, but they're saying, what is Indigenous mining and what makes this, why must this mining be called Indigenous vis-a-vis us saying mining in general? You understand what I'm saying? So if we're able to just unpack kancane, what we mean by that, Indigenous astronomy, what do we mean by that? If we're saying we pride ourselves on having hosted this International Indigenous Astronomy Conference, what do we mean by that? Because also what we try and do through some of these engagements, colleagues, you must remember that we are trying to encourage young people to go and study certain disciplines so that they too can contribute to these fields. So what do you mean to someone when you're saying, what would be the difference between astronomy in, just astronomy and Indigenous astronomy? So if you can just unpack a bit on those two. And then I want to talk about pricing. And, this is something that I think also some of our beneficiaries, particularly maybe Ms. Pasha and Ubama Ben Ashlambe, even actually Mr. Matabata. Pricing. So often they are traditional medicines or products, right? And I don't know at what point it gets called traditional and it gets called Indigenous vis-a-vis, because so you go to Dis-Chem and you buy whatever product as it is, and the price of it will be whatever the price of it is. Then you go to KwaMai, Denver Hostel, a number of these spaces where some of us live. I live in Joburg, so all these places are here close to me. I've had engagements with Induna of hostels. Others always say they don't know why they call themselves Induna, but yeah, Induna, as well as traditional healers in the hostels, from the hostels around Johannesburg. And I've had meetings with them, and so when you look at the pricing of whatever product, when you buy it from Dis-Chem vis-a-vis when you buy it from Ubabuzwite here in KwaMai, the pricing will be extremely different for the same product. And of course, we've not considered the fact that the one product has probably gone through, it being shelf ready, made to be shelf ready in terms of its packaging too, in terms of it being tested for whatever you will test it for, etc., vis-a-vis the other one that Uzwite would have just probably gone to the field and he would have made his own analysis. He will also say, I tested, I can't just take any of these herbs. I can see when it's ready for consumption and when it's not. and so on and so forth. So he would have gone through his own processes as well, but he would not charge me the same price that I would be getting charged at in Dis-Chem. And of course, I mean, there's a secondary factor of transportation, of packaging, labeling, and all of that stuff. But I don't know if there are conversations. I'm really putting this very simply, but I don't know if there are conversations within the space around pricing and product value and so on and so forth. I don't know if I'm making any sense. But is this something I thought of now to say, how, are we having conversations around that? I mean, I guess it's a similar conversation you may have generally, let's say even with clothing items, with, I don't know, hair, with any other service or product that is being given. But it's something that for me is very interesting. I mean, it's the narrative we had around, for example, Umhlonyane when it became a thing during COVID, that it was very problematic that Umhlonyane, I mean, could be picked by Okokobetu from their fields, from their gardens, from their backyards. And it just is what it is. Yet during COVID, we saw the exploitation of it where, I mean, it was even being sent out of the country, repackaged, only to be sent back to us and sold at a ridiculous price. So I don't know if there are conversations around, I don't know, maybe call it pricing within the space as well. And then I'd like to also find out if there are any innovations around, well, this also goes to my question around the spectrum, right? So there's the spectrum of what we term indigenous. How far and wide is it? At what point do we say something is indigenous? And at what point do we just say it's an innovation? So at what point is it an indigenous innovation? At what point is it indigenous knowledge? And at what point is it just knowledge? And at what point is it just an innovation? I think the spectrum of that, trying to understand that is very important, particularly as I go into this next I mean, really it's comments, and I'm picking at your brains, colleagues, to see if some of the conversations we are having with members of society, you are finding ways of addressing, as you do the work that you're doing. But let's talk about hair. I want to talk about hair in the sense that it has become cheaper to make your hair, to relax your hair, Ms. Patla. It has become cheaper to relax your hair than to take your hair, your natural hair for treatment, so that's hair that doesn't have chemical in it, essentially. So, I mean, you think of the products such as Cantu, products such as Rutos, products such as, I don't know what else I could mention, but I mean, those products are extremely expensive. So at what point did maintaining Black hair in its natural state become such an expensive exercise? And this then goes, for me, it goes back to if there are certain herbs, or I don't know how we put together the product, to put together these products. And if there's a process and any intentionality, that of course will be supported by, for example, the way the Wits chemistry, I don't know, department or school is getting involved. I mean, they are the ones who can see how they assist in putting these products together. But to be able to reach a market, the majority of South Africans who are not rich, who are working class and are members of the proletariat. And it speaks to, for me, upholding our national identity. So our science needs to be able to respond to imvelaphi yethu. And that's always my thing about science and the role of science. So is there any intentionality in having, and that's why I always say, colleagues, that I want to see representation of the majority of South Africans within the sciences, because I believe the sciences must be able to respond to our needs. And the majority of South African women have natural black hair, yet the products that are on the shelves of our stores are so expensive. Yet the product that straightens our hair is affordable. It's very cheap to relax your hair and maintain it in that nature. So for me, I want to understand, for example, I mean, when you look at the TVET program, and this is where we look at the interface between higher education and science and innovation. When you look at the TVET program and you look at the skills program, there's what you call beauty therapy. Yeah, there's a skills area called beauty therapy. And you would want to essentially see an interface between what is being done through the department and through NICSO in lifting this Indigenous Knowledge Act, and what is being done in the skilling. So with that beauty therapy, I remember at the World Skills Conference at when they were competing there, Honorable Mahlatsi had left, I think, the next day. They were busy competing, with this hair that doesn't look like mine and yours. And I was so concerned because of this thing that I'm raising. And of course, I was told, no, we're preparing for the competition, the world competition will be in Germany, so we must know how to deal with this particular hair. I said, okay, but I also want to be brought into confidence that in the skilling, we are figuring out what chemicals are best suited for natural black hair, and also finding a way for it to be accessible in terms of pricing. So I would love to find out if there are innovations of that nature, Mr. Patel, because I believe that Dr. Masiramule has left. There are innovations of that sort that are coming through into our registry that we are trying to support through the other various departments other various entities within our department. Last two would be that I think I want to echo the sentiments from Honorable Mahlatsi and Honorable Sibia around timeframes, particularly in relation to the biocultural protocols that have been completed across the various provinces, and just wanting to understand if our reach across these provinces, how far is our reach within the provinces, and what are our timeframes in able to expand our reach. And of course, I've spoken to, wanting to see a correlation between the skills that are being offered in our TVET program, and that having some sort of correlation to what we are finding to be important areas of research, of innovation, of manufacturing within the Indigenous knowledge system of South Africa. Colleagues, those are just our inputs. Sorry I took long. I think at this point I'll hand over to Mr. Patel, and then who will hand over, you'll figure out how you do it. So, who you handing what over to, but those are just the inputs from our side. But really, really exciting work as always. I'm sure you guys get so bored of us always saying, wow, DSI. But I mean, once in a while, I think we do raise our concerns where they are. I think for us, it's really an expansion of the work that we're doing, right? Because we are doing great work already. It's expanding the work that we're doing. It's being inclusive in the work that we're doing. It's ensuring that there is impact in terms of the work that we're doing. That's where the focus is right now, and greater collaboration in the work that we're doing. So it's very clear where we're trying to move, I think, as DSI. And I mean, already as you've indicated to us that you are having conversations with other departments, you are presenting to other departments. So in terms of that as well, it's good that we're seeing that coming forth. And of course, ours would always be to see more of it coming forth. But that's it from our side for now, colleagues.
Thanks, Chair. And I think, we extend our thanks to the Portfolio Committee. This is a portfolio that is really matured and grown. So the interest and the kind of deep comments, even some of a philosophical nature, I think I appreciate it. It helps to steer us as we take this portfolio forward. From the questions I've picked up, I would want to see Shumi and Tom want to address the question around the HCD program, the SSDU progress, and some timelines in that regard, the timeframes around the biocultural protocols, and how extensively are we, how far is our footprint. And then I think there were some comments around cannabis, etc., for earlier on, but there were a range of other specific questions that I think Ank is best placed to address around the plant in the Free State, and then the very important question about how do we target beneficiaries, how do we identify beneficiaries, etc. So maybe you want to address that. I wasn't too sure what specific master plan was being spoken about. I assume it's the cannabis master plan. But again, I'm not too sure if Ank can address that. I know that our other colleagues are working on cannabis more broadly, but again, Ank, you can guide. And then I think Shumi again on the smart village and what is indigenous mining and astronomy. You might want to address that at the start. So start with you and then go to Ank, and then feel free to respond to the issues of pricing and this issue of targeting innovation to address to problems that we face. I will come in at the end to address, Chair, your question about the issue of hair as an example, but more broadly around that, and any other issues that may not have been addressed. So Shumi, can we start with you around some of those comments? And you may have been taking your own notes, so you may have picked up other issues that I may have not picked up that you want to talk to. And then we'll go directly to Ank, and then I'll take a bit of question, and if anyone else wants to respond, they can just let me know. Okay. So Shumi, do you want to start?
Yes, thanks, DDG. Thanks again for the questions, honorable members. I will start with the most easiest one and maybe go to the most complex ones. The timeframes around the establishment of the SSDU. When we were busy developing the bill, we got to a point where we were advised to start with concentrating now on the establishment of the office, because the impression is once the regulations are in place, therefore the office must also start running. In other words, these processes are running parallel, so that once the regulations are approved, we have an office that is in place to implement the Act. So in my presentation, I indicated the steps that we have followed. Most of them were more on the feasibility studies and the documents that are necessary and needed for the office to be established. So what I'm trying to say now is we are at the tail end of the administrative side of the establishment of the office. The outstanding meeting with the interdepartmental committee comprising the 3 departments is to look at the documents that we were requested to develop and see if they are aligned to the purpose of the SSDU. If there are any additions or omissions that we need to do, the meeting on the 28th of November will address those. But in terms of timeframes, we wanted to link the approval of the regulations to the establishment of the SSDU. Looking at what is left now in the regulations, We have the regulations that have been gazetted for public comment, 60 days, and that 60 days is lapsing in January. And we are very much aware that not all our stakeholders will have access to that gazette. So what we are doing as a parallel process as NITSO, DSI, is to go to the communities and do the consultations so that these parallel processes come to an end towards the end of January. After which the other process of taking the regulations to EXCO and to Parliament, back to Minister, are likely to happen end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter of 2023. And same processes of the SSDU are likely to be at that point, not unless there are other technical activities that we might not be aware of, since we are not part of the DPSA National Treasury processes. But in terms of timeframes, that's where we are looking at. The other question that was asked, DDG, was the human capital development that will talk to the programs that we have around the Bachelor of Indigenous Knowledge, which is currently hosted by two universities, Northwest University and Limpopo. Internally as DSI, we are working closely with our colleagues that are responsible for human capital development and strategies thereof, because our understanding now of the landscape, including the resources, is that NITSO on its own is not going to be able to handle the volumes of students that are starting to show interest in the discipline. And as the lecturer from Northwest indicated, Utsile, is that some of the streams were neglected, not because they were not important, they were neglected because we could not fund the resources, starting from the lecturers to the number of students that are showing interest in those streams. But we have since doubled the offerings, the transfers that we are giving to Northwest so that they are able to accommodate some of the students. I got goosebumps when he was saying there are 2,000 applications for the following academic year. And I was asking myself, how are we going to accommodate this? So we are going to be talking regularly now with our HCD colleagues within the department, because we are seeing these synergies. And even though we are not part of the HCD strategy, but the work that we are doing is feeding into the broader human capital development and to some extent the TVET strategies and implementation. That is the first part. There was a question that was asked about the beneficiation. Once again, it goes back to the biocultural community protocols that we are developing. And I think there was a genuine concern around beneficiaries or IK holders who might not have this easy access that will bring them to a position where they are SMMEs. Honorable members, we have taken a political decision that says indigenous knowledge by its nature is communally owned. If at some point you branch out to be an SMME, good for you. But what we are encouraging, which is now enforced by the IK Act, is regardless of whether you are an SMME or an ordinary citizen that is somewhere in the rural areas, if the knowledge can be traced to that community, when the benefit sharing time comes, the benefits must accrue to the communities who hold that knowledge. And that is where the PCP becomes important, because it's not just an exercise to tick the box. those BCPs are meant to identify the resources that are found in these various provinces and various communities, so that when the third party then wants to use these resources, whether they come from South Africa or elsewhere, if they want to access these resources, genetic resources, they enter into these legal prescripts, namely non-disclosure agreements, benefit sharing agreements, and license agreements. License agreements then will kick in at the point where the product is ready for commercialization. But at the entry point where there is intention to work on the genetic resource, the benefit sharing agreements must be concluded between the third party and the communities that own the knowledge. But because we understand that the communities are vast, the households are vast, the IK Act is providing for the appointment of board of trustees, who will then be representing the communities at the point of negotiations. So the role of the trustees then would be to negotiate these agreements on behalf of their respective communities. And another issue was raised around trans-border issues. The Act also takes into consideration the trans-boundary arrangements. We are, as I indicated earlier on, we are members of the Nagoya Protocol, and the Nagoya Protocol provides for the establishment of a competent authority. And in the South African context, the Department of Fisheries, Forestry and Environment are that competent authority, which means then the NICS or the SSDU that's going to be established will have to work closely with the competent authority so that when the third party wants to access the resource, then we are in communication, including those countries or member states who are outside the borders of South Africa, so that we don't have a situation where we have orphan knowledge. In the unlikely event where a community cannot be identified, NICSO then will hold the benefits in custody. In other words, NICSO will negotiate the benefit sharing agreements. If we get to the licensing stage, NICSO will negotiate with the third party the license agreements, and whatever benefits that were supposed to go to the community will be kept by NICSO in custody until a community has been identified. And the biocultural community protocol will be that enabling vehicle for the identification of communities, specifically for benefit sharing agreements, and most importantly, for identifying the leadership and the people who are allowed to make decisions on behalf of the communities. So there will be benefits that are individual, and there are benefits that are communally owned. So we are closing that sieve because the very nature of Indigenous Knowledge Act is sui generis. Because if you talk about individual benefits, you are talking your patents, your copyrights, your trademarks, which are individually owned, and that becomes the responsibility of DTIC and SIPs. The other question was relating to the indigenous mining. Honorable members, as we indicated, one of the streams in the BIKS is science and technology. And under that science and technology is indigenous mining. Already, we have students at Northwest University Mafikeng campus who have registered under indigenous mining. When we had a conference in Kondo, we were trying to do this interface between the conventional mining and indigenous mining. And you would have been so pleased to note the value that the conventional geologists are attaching to the knowledge of the communities through indigenous mining. They were sharing a platform there, and you could see that they are talking about the same subject matter, but the approaches are so different with the same end product. The studies around indigenous mining and metallurgy have shown that the indigenous mining experts, who are our communities, have knowledge of how to identify where the mineral resource is. They have interacted with their environment to such an extent that they are able to identify by the color of the stone, the color, the landscape, the shape of the stones, and how the whole environment around the mineral will behave. And the geologists were confessing that at some point they would struggle with their machines to identify where the resource is until they would be assisted by the communities who just take them straight to where the mineral is found. So that is the theoretical and empirical evidence that we want to prove with this program that is currently in the Northwest University, which is not intended maybe to undermine the knowledge of the communities, but to valorize that knowledge. That is insofar as the indigenous mining is concerned. Indigenous astronomy. What we did last year, 2021, was to commission Northwest University. And for that matter, I just want to explain that unfortunately, we could not manage to get the presence of Dr. Muteo Hoiziwe, who is our first PhD graduate on indigenous astronomy in Northwest University. So we were hoping that he's going to be part of this platform, and from his experience and empirical evidence and research, he would have explained to us in detail what is it really that we mean about this indigenous astronomy. But there is the report from the commission that we did last year, where the university went to a place in Mpumalanga called Inzalo Yelanga. They came back with a very interesting report where it was demonstrating something that we didn't know, which talked to a Hindu god who fell in Mpumalanga, and another Mecca, Saudi Arabia, a god who also had a footprint in that area. And this is confirmed by the area where they were, which is called Inzalo Yelanga, where this myth, if you like it, was able now to be verified, that indeed there is still that footprint of those gods who fell in Inzalo Yelanga. And this is attested by the communities who are around that area. And this area is very important in the South African landscape, in that it is the only area that people are new the winter and summer solstice, where the moon moves away and the sun takes another direction. And this is now the motivation that is currently under discussion, that even the calendars that we have are Western or Eurocentric motivated calendars. According to the African calendar, the first of the year is around September. This is information that we are getting from the communities through the indigenous astronomy work. And they would tell us how they are able to link the stars and the universe. And to some extent, I think Dr. Shabalala is more knowledgeable in this space than I am, as I'm talking now from a policy point of view, and other people would be talking from an information point of view. But the universe, the stars and the moon and the spirituality, there is a relationship between those. And how the cycles of females are attached to the changes that happen in the moon and the stars have evidence to people who have been working in that space. So that is now the reason why we said after that report we received from Inzalo, let us call everyone in the space of indigenous astronomy so that they can share their experiences. And we were so excited to get so much traction from all over the world, people who are working in the space of indigenous astronomy. Hence, we said the outcomes of that conference must be the establishment of this council, who are going to come up with norms and standards on how then to deal with this new discipline that we have identified under the RPL. Norms and standards so that when they now accredit and certify the practitioners, they accredit and certify on the basis of a set rule of norms and standards. In terms of the BCP, which I already touched on, how far are we, how far is our reach? We are trying, honorable members, to make sure that every single community in South Africa has a biocultural community protocol. And out of 560 communities, we have workshopped 140 within a space of 2 years. So if we were to look at 140 versus 560, we're not even halfway through. And this biocultural protocol, it happens in 2 ways. We do have the overarching biocultural protocol, which will have all the information that you require from the community. And we will have a specific biocultural community protocol that is based on a particular resource. To that extent, we already have a biocultural community protocol that was concluded for the Khoi and San communities, only on rooibos. So we are going to have the overarching and the genetic resource specific biocultural community protocol. And that is also wanting to respond to the issues of benefit sharing, so that when there is any use of rooibos in whichever form, by whichever platform, the owners and holders of knowledge around rooibos are put up around the table to benefit, to negotiate the benefit sharing agreements. I think I will stop there, DDG, and if there are any follow-up questions, I will be able to respond to this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shumi. I think let's go immediately to Ank. Chair, I think the session is planned till 12. So, Ank, if you can just keep that in mind.
Thanks, DDG. Yes, I will be brief, and my response really will be strictly related to our mandate, because most of the questions that were posed to us involve other government departments, and maybe the recommendation should be that the next meeting such as this, we also bring our partners like the DTIC or environment or small business. With regards to the observation that it was said that most people use African medicines or natural products. Yes, it is a fact. There were studies that were done in South Africa, some of them commissioned by our own South African Medical Research, and some coming all the way from the World Health Organization, that over 70% of Africans actually see an African medicines practitioner before they could go to a primary health care. What it means is that 70% of us here will go and see a Sangoma or an Inyanga before we could go to a clinic. So it has been documented. There are sources which we can share with honorable members. With regard to human capital development, the current and the future, what we're focusing on, and this comes from the ground, is that we should intensify this agricultural work, especially around food and medicines and issues that are related to health and beauty, natural products that are related to cosmetics. Entrepreneurship and skills development around businesses is what is also coming from the ground, and that's what we'll also focus on. With regard to medicine, of course, we already have put in the decadal plan and are already implementing time frame wise issues of changing the legislation on African medicine or on medicine in general, and these things will have to then factor in the human capital development in terms of the training of medical doctors or pharmacists or nurses like that. Manufacturing is very, very important, and ultimately commercialization. So these are the focus areas in terms of human capital development. And we also work with TVET or community colleges in various provinces. When it comes to cannabis, yes, the time frame of the approval of the entire cannabis master plan, it's a little bit complicated at the moment because of many South African laws that kind of trip into each other. So I am unable to say for sure when will the cannabis master plan be approved. However, we have agreed as departments that we need not wait. We need to act. That is why from the DSI side, honorable members, our responsibility and mandate as the Department of Science and Innovation is research, development, and innovation. There are other departments who have certain mandates within the Cannabis Master Plan. If at all we do certain things that are related to their mandate, it's research-based so that whatever they do is based on knowledge, it's based on research results. So hence what we have done so far, we mentioned that we have done high-end research, of course, in terms of high-end medicines on cancer, diabetes, and. However, the next step was then to look for these small, medium enterprises and indigenous knowledge base holders at community level. So we focus on villages, rural youth, rural women, and peoples with disabilities. And I guess in the next meeting, we'll be able to give you a breakdown because we just selected these 20 just in less than, I would say in September, actually. The concerns about women, it is our concern. That's why we are that directed. There was also a concern about the Northern Cape. The concern about the Northern Cape was strictly about cannabis from the first tranche of the work that we've done. I wasn't part of the small business, and I would like to trust that the Department of Small Business should have found some people from the Northern Cape. However, the DSI have in the past and currently, we do have projects in the Northern Cape. And actually, 2 weeks ago, we were told that one of the projects that we had with CSIR on an anti-hair loss product is being licensed with some of the formulators in the country. So there is work that is happening on the ground, and also our other colleagues, Kidiboni, may also share what it is that they are doing in the Northern Cape. Licensing is the biggest concern, and you are correct, ma'am, in that the organizations that are getting these licenses and permits from SAPRA or from the Department of Agriculture is mainly white-owned. Hence, from our side, we became that directed that this work is dedicated to those who are working within the African indigenous knowledge systems. So we are that directed. We have had several meetings with SAPRA and agriculture. Our whole consortium of scientists are really fighting that, we have to make sure that it is those women that have been cultivating these land races, these indigenous strains of cannabis that ended up in jail, or some of them were killed, that we need to actually focus on that. And recently the presidency made sure that this is actually a priority, and working with the IDC to make sure that this is implemented. With regards to funding, yes, funding is the biggest issue in the indigenous knowledge systems, and I will really leave this to my DDGs to address. However, the DSI really does a lot of raising of the fund to support our work. That is why we are able to have all these labs and these facilities at community level. even though sometimes we may be going beyond our own mandate because, you know, nothing is forthcoming from other departments. And I would say maybe it is settings like this that, you know, you speak to your colleagues from other departments that IKS needs to be taken care of, because we can't do the stop and go work. Hence, it makes it difficult to even give you time frames, because this year we'll have funding, next year we don't have funding. So far, yes, we mentioned that the DSI have put down 26 million for BioPanza, which is sitting with TIA and IDC. Yes, we haven't seen the actual money in the account, in the coffers at TIA and the IDC from our partner departments. They have committed, this is the language that they use, but we haven't seen it down, you know, on the table. Maybe someone will need to have a conversation with them to fast track the provision of this funding. Pricing, we take our small medium enterprises through a 6 months bio-entrepreneurship program, and one of the modules involves the logistics of really coming up with how do you price, how do you understand your product, but how do you attach a price to it, starting from the amount of money that might have been put on research, issues of logistics, transportation, warehousing, labeling, marketing, and. So the beneficiaries that are here are well trained in those areas, and they know how to then put down the prices, and they are also disruptive. Their prices are disrupting the status quo out there, which has made these products super, super expensive. But we trying to make sure that our products are affordable, at the same time being, competing, being able to compete at market value. Commercialization outside, yes, the beneficiaries through various expos are given that opportunity to commercialize outside. Those that are here, they have been to several countries outside South Africa as well, and others that we support with the help of the IDC and the DTIC, or our own initiatives that we have with other countries. The spectrum in terms of the conversation of indigenous, traditional, what is indigenous knowledge base, I would say we need a day for that. This is super academic. However, we chose to say our work is indigenous knowledge based bio-innovation, meaning that at the basis of this bio-innovation is indigenous knowledge as the primary informant, primary ingredient. And there are all those definitions of what indigenous means, but that's academic, is part of the decolonial agenda. So the universities may actually assist us in this work. The politics of hair, skin, I think I've already mentioned that we are very deliberate that these products are based on African knowledge systems and African biodiversity. However, the ingredients or whatever is formulated may be used by any and everyone, even though we're doing our best that in the process, we help our people appreciate who they are in the process, accepting their Africanness, accepting what nature has given them, and then coming up with these products to support that, but making them affordable as well. Facilities, so we have several facilities, but the question was on the Free State ones. The CGMP lab, industrial lab is on campus because it will be a teaching yet industrial lab. So it's within the Free State University, and they should be finishing soon, as I said. And then the plant, where we're going to have a plant, it is around Itau industrial zone, and we are at architectural stage at the moment. So we're sizing it up and partitioning it up, and we'll let you know when it's ready for a visit to go. However, we have finished a facility by the Free State in Kwakwa in the Eastern Cape, and we're starting in Chajongo actually this week. And we'll start also, we receive funding from rural development. We'll be starting also in the Northwest outside Zeerast sometimes next year. Beneficiation, I think Shumi explained that very well. That's the models that we use. So all the research development and innovation beneficiation work that comes out of our work, it's informed by everything that our colleagues from the policy, Shumi and Tom, actually, do, and they're the ones that then guide us in guiding the scientists and the communities in dealing with access and benefit sharing. Including those who just decide to venture into becoming small, medium enterprises. DDG, I think these are the questions that were directed to the bioinnovation team. Thank you.
Thanks, Shumi and Ant. I think from the list that I had, the questions were addressed. Chair, just to reinforce the kind of comment that Ant made, I think there are areas that we need to be a lot more deliberate about if we using this a notion of decolonizing the knowledge system. As you all remember, it was one of the items that we listed as part of the transformation framework. So in moving forward, and in order to also keep the DSI and our entities focused on this issue, we would continuously identify areas that are neglected, that in fact needs support, because sometimes the neglect steers the market in a particular way, because the kind of chemistry around the hairs don't exist, that then limits opportunities in the market together with indigenous knowledge. So as part of that effort of continuously looking at what is our own realities, where is it that we need to target, there will be progress, I'm confident of this, that we make in a very deliberate way to say we are supporting this science because it has a very strong element of inclusion for the following reasons, and then take it from there. And I think the areas you raised have come up previously, and I think there's more that can be done to really build strong science and technological capabilities in that regard. So that was the first comment. The second on funding, I think this is something that I'm a lot more optimistic about now. I mean, with these different cases, we can see it. A lot of times we were able to secure co-funding because we were able to convince and show the value of the work that we're doing to equivalent people in equivalent bureaucrats in other government departments. A lot of times we were able to get traction on certain things because we were able to find a sympathetic chief director or sympathetic DDG or director, and different people in DSI were able to do this. But I think that interaction and getting people excited who manage particular projects has now been complemented over the past year or so by the efforts as we took forward the decadal plan, but also the efforts of the portfolio committee to raise this at higher levels as well. The second interministerial committee was held Friday last week, and the signals were very, very positive. I mean, ministers coming forward and saying we can see opportunities in these areas. Let's talk about kind of co-investing it. And then hopefully as we move to the plenary in March next year, we'll be able to use that opportunity strategically and in partnership to really get a much more stronger partnership with industry players. So I thought on those two issues, I think we are, the trend line is now in the correct way, and it just means that we need to continuously focus on the specifics and bring specific projects. And the good thing is the IKS portfolio in particular is at that stage where we have a very good product to sell to not just the people who are already convinced of the value, but also others. Thanks, Chair, and thanks to the colleagues who responded and to the beneficiaries who made their comments, and we'll hand it over back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patel. Thank you very much to all colleagues who have presented today. It was really really exciting to engage with yourselves. It would be great to engage further, particularly with the various beneficiaries. It would be great to have other spaces where we can continue to speak about these important issues about this particular sector and see how we can play a collaborative role in lifting these matters. But thank you very much to Mr. Patel and to all colleagues from the CSIR as well for the presentations you've given us this morning. This does bring us to the end of our portfolio committee meeting, and we hope, well, our portfolio committee meeting with yourselves, and we hope that you also enjoyed interacting with ourselves, and we wish you a lovely weekend. Thank you very much. I'd like honorable members to stay though, so that we can adopt some minutes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Patel.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Siyabonga bamapena, siyabonga. See, you've given us a thumbs up there. Thank you very much, and wishing you all the best with your work. Thank you very much, colleagues. Anele, oh sorry, Shanaz, I would like to check if we do meet quorum at this point in time. I think we don't at this point in time.
We don't, Chair.
Okay. Yeah, because I see there's only
1, 2, 3, 4 of you.
Okay. I saw Honorable Tambo was on the platform earlier on. I've been struggling with network a lot today. I don't know if it's also because of the rain. But I think the rain is also contributing. The rain and load shedding is also contributing to members being in and out of the meeting. But
Yes, the load shedding is bad. We received an apology from Ms. McCarthy, who said the electricity has been off since yesterday. So there's no way she can join. Otherwise, she would have.
Okay. All right, that's fine, because we do have a number of minutes to get through. I think we have, in fact, the entire October to cover, and it would have been great if we were able to. So we are 4 on the platform. Yeah, we're 4 on the platform.
Yes, 4.
Okay. All right. Okay. No, then let's postpone these minutes, colleagues. I see Honorable Lucia has joined the platform, but that still makes us 5, and we need 6.
1 more, yeah.
To adopt the minutes. Just 1 second, Shanaz. All right, honorable members and colleagues, we will postpone the adoption of minutes to next week, Wednesday. And so that means that we will adopt all minutes till I don't know, Shanaz, if the minutes from today will be ready, but then we'll adopt all the minutes till today, and the 2 reports that should be sent to you. I think one should be sent to you by today already. And then the other should be sent to you on Monday, so that we can adopt all of that on Wednesday. Then we do have next week, we have a briefing from the department on some of the institutions that we've been concerned about, such as MUT, VUT, who else do we have? UNISA, and then the minister has written a letter to us regarding what he's doing at UCT. So we should be receiving that briefing next week, Wednesday. And then on Friday, I'm not sure what's on the program. Shanaz, what are we doing on Friday?
So we're doing the last 3 annual reports of this the remainder entities within the DSI. Then we would have completed all the annual reports.
Okay.
So it would be that's next.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Shanaz. So colleagues, that's how next week looks like. We would have wanted it to be physical, but what we're gonna try and do is maybe skip a day, skip a week in terms of the physical meeting. So we have 1 week physical meeting, 1 week virtual meeting on a Wednesday. So thank you very much to yourselves, colleagues, and also thank you very much to all members who were able to attend the physical committee meeting this Wednesday, and really appreciate your patience. It was a very long meeting, and we know that some of the colleagues from the colleges arrived late, which just really affected our program, but really want to appreciate the patience of members and the support of members who were there. Honorable Mahlati, Honorable Sibia, Honorable Boshoff, Honorable Makesi, Honorable King. And of course, we do note the apologies that have come through from Honorable Itzia, who's on study leave, Honorable Mananiso, who's sitting in another committee, and Honorable Yabo, who I think was sick on the day. But thank you very much, honorable members and colleagues, for your commitment this week. We will see each other next week, and we wish you a restful weekend. Thank you.
Long live the chair.
I hope
Recording stopped.
Live the chair.